You cut it short once and hated it. Then you grew it long and something still felt off, and you couldn't put your finger on why. That's the thing nobody tells you about hair after 70. It's not just about the cut. It's not just about the color. It's about the combination of invisible habits that have quietly stacked up, and they're working against your face right now, even if your hair looks fine. I researched the worst style and beauty mistakes women over 70 make, and the specific fixes that change how you read in a room, in a photo, and in the mirror. So if you've been doing all the right things and still feeling like something's off, stay with me, because this is exactly for you. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. I cover this every week. 1. The length trap. When more hair reads as more age. Here's something that surprises most women when I tell them. After 70, longer hair doesn't automatically make you look younger. In many cases, it does the exact opposite, and it does it so gradually that you don't notice it happening until a photo stops you cold. The reason isn't that long hair is always wrong. The reason is that long hair without structure, without layering, without face framing, without the right density work, acts like a curtain. And what a curtain does is pull the eye downward. When the eye travels down, it reads weight. It reads heaviness. It reads everything lower on your face and neck and shoulder area as more prominent than the features you actually want noticed. Your eyes, your cheekbones, the architecture of your face. After 70, gravity has already been doing its work. Your hair's job is to counteract that, not cooperate with it. The fix is what stylists call the strategic mid-length cut, and the exact zone they're looking for is between the collarbone and the jaw. That range is not arbitrary. Hair that ends in that zone keeps enough length to feel feminine and substantial, but it stops pulling the eye all the way down to the chest. It stays in the facial orbit. But length alone isn't the fix. What makes this cut work for women over 70 specifically is the layering inside it, and the way those layers are built to do face framing work. A skilled stylist will cut longer pieces at the front, angling them forward to fall just past your cheekbones. This is called a face frame, and at 70, it functions like a soft directional arrow pointing straight up to your eyes. When I describe this to women who've been wearing the same long, flat hair for years, the first thing they say is, "But I'm afraid I'll lose my femininity." And I understand that completely. Long hair has a meaning. It carries something, a history, an identity. But here's what I want you to notice. The women who feel most beautiful, most themselves, most feminine after 70 are almost never the ones with the most length. They're the ones with the most intention. There's a difference between having a lot of hair and having hair that does something for you. Ask your stylist for face framing layers, collarbone length, and what they call a soft taper at the ends. Not blunt cut, not choppy, but a gentle point cut finish that moves. That combination is what makes mid-length hair read as elegant rather than in between. The snapback here is real and it's fast. Women who've made this switch consistently say that within the first week, people are commenting on their face, not their hair. That's exactly the point. When your cut stops pulling attention down and starts directing it up, your face becomes the subject again. Your eyes land first. Your expression reads louder. The whole composition of how you present changes. When you're ready to ask for this at the salon, the language matters. Don't say a little shorter. Say, collarbone length, soft internal layers, face framing pieces that angle forward to the cheekbones, point cut ends. Those are the actual words a stylist needs to give you the right result, not a guess at what a bit more manageable means to them. And here's something worth sitting with before your next appointment. The length trap isn't about vanity. It's about the fact that we've all been told, in 100 small ways, that more hair equals more femininity. But what actually reads as more feminine, more alive, more present, is hair that's doing something deliberate. In the next part, I'm going to show you that your color might be undoing everything your cut is trying to do, and the fix is simpler than you think. 2. The color that dims you. Why most women over 70 are fighting the wrong battle. Most women over 70 are fighting their silver and white hair. They've been covering it for years, sometimes decades. And I want to say something that might feel a little uncomfortable. For a lot of you, that fight is costing you more than it's giving you. Here's what's actually happening. When hair goes fully silver or white, it's not just changing color. The texture and light reflectivity of the hair changes too. Silver hair that's treated well catches light in a way that younger hair doesn't. It can look luminous, intentional, polished. But the moment you try to overpower it with a solid dye, especially a darker shade, several things go wrong at once. First, dark color against silver regrowth creates a hard, stark contrast line at the root. That line draws the eye directly to where the hair is growing in, which means it draws the eye to the evidence that the color isn't natural. Second, flat. And this is the one that most women don't realize until someone points it out. Dark, flat color can actually make skin tone look more sallow, more tired, more uneven. Because natural silver and white hair has a built-in brightening effect on the face. When you remove it, you remove that brightening too. So what's the fix? It's not about stopping color entirely if you're not ready for that. It's about working with your silver rather than against it. And the most effective tool for doing that is what colorists call a warm pearl toning gloss. This is a semi-permanent, deposit-only treatment that sits on top of your hair rather than penetrating the shaft the way permanent color does. It doesn't cover the silver, it adjusts the tone of it. And the adjustment you're looking for at 70 is warmth. Not yellow, not orange, warmth. A soft, creamy, slightly golden pearl tone that neutralizes the cold, harsh, blue-gray quality that untreated silver can develop over time. The difference between cold silver and warm silver is significant, and it's visible from across the room. Cold silver, the kind that hasn't been toned, reads as stark. It can look washed out, institutional, almost clinical against certain skin tones. Warm silver reads as a deliberate, sophisticated style choice. It has the same effect on the face that good lighting has on a room. Everything looks softer, more balanced, more alive. Here's the language to use at your next appointment. I want a warm pearl toning gloss on my silver. I'm looking for a soft, creamy warmth that takes out any cold or blue tones without covering the silver itself. A good colorist will know exactly what you mean. If they push you toward permanent color instead, that's useful information about whether this is the right salon for you. Now there's a timing element to this that most women are never told. And this is the part one want you to write down. A toning gloss lasts approximately 4 to 6 weeks on silver hair, sometimes up to 8 with the right aftercare. That means you're not committing to a permanent change. You're committing to a trial run. Try it once, see what it does to your face in natural light, in photos, in the way people respond to you. And then decide. What women consistently report after making this switch is that the first thing that changes isn't the hair. It's how bright their face looks. One woman I heard from described it as like someone turned the lights on. That's the brightening effect of warm silver working the way it's supposed to, reflecting light upward toward the face rather than absorbing it. The other thing that changes is the maintenance load. Fighting silver is relentless. Roots every 4 to 6 weeks minimum, color that fades unevenly, the constant mismatch between what's growing in and what's on the rest of the shaft. Working with silver through toning is a lighter, less frequent commitment. And as your hair becomes more uniformly silver over time, the toning gets easier, not harder. One more thing before we move forward. If you've been covering your hair for a long time and the idea of transitioning feels overwhelming, there is a middle path. Ask your colorist about a technique called blending, where they strategically lighten the dyed sections over several appointments to gradually match the incoming silver, rather than one dramatic chop and start over. It takes longer, but the result grows in seamlessly, and it means you never have to walk out of the salon looking like a before photo. Color is only half the picture, though, because even perfect silver with perfect toning can still fall flat, literally, if the volume underneath it isn't there. That's what we're going into next, and it's the problem that most women have tried to fix with products alone, which is exactly why it hasn't worked. 3. Flat hair, flat face. The volume problem that products can't fix. Gravity doesn't just pull at skin. It pulls at hair. And after 70, the combination of finer hair texture, reduced density at the crown, and years of styling habits that compress rather than lift means that most women are walking around with hair that is actively making their face red heavier, flatter, and more tired than it actually is. I want to be specific about why this matters structurally, because it's not just about aesthetics. When hair sits flat against the crown and temples, it pulls the visual weight of the whole head downward. The eye travels from flat scalp to face to jaw, all in a downward direction. Nothing interrupts that path. And because of the way human perception works, a downward visual path reads as heaviness, as gravity winning, as something being pulled rather than lifted. Contrast that with hair that has volume at the root, particularly at the crown and just above the temples. When hair lifts at those points, the eye travels upward first. It hits the volume, rides it to its peak, and then lands on the face. That's a fundamentally different visual experience. It reads as structure. It reads as lift. It literally makes your cheekbones appear higher because you've changed where the eye enters the face. This is not something any product can fully create on its own. And this is the part one want you to really hear, because most of the advice out there skips directly to use a volumizing mousse and calls it done. Products help, but direction creates volume. And direction means how you dry your hair, not what you put on it first. Here's the technique. While your hair is still damp, not wet damp, flip your head forward and direct the airflow from the roots outward and upward. You're lifting the hair away from the scalp at the root, not smoothing it down toward it. Hold sections at the root with your fingers, not a brush at this stage, and use the heat to set that lift before the hair cools. Once the root section is dry, bring your head back up and finish the lengths with a round brush, directing warmth under the hair rather than over it. What you're doing is training the hair to sit away from the scalp rather than against it. And because hair holds its shape when it dries, that lift stays, often for a full day or more, depending on your hair's texture. Now layer in the product. A root lift spray, not a mousse, not a dry shampoo, a root lift spray specifically, applied to the root section before you begin drying. Work it into the root with your fingertips before flipping your head forward. The product gives the hair something to grip during the drying process. And it extends how long the volume holds once it's set. The 5-week rule applies here too. Fine hair at 70 loses its shape faster than it did at 40. Not because it's unhealthy, but because the hair strand itself has changed in diameter and elasticity. A cut that was perfect 6 weeks ago is now a cut that's falling in on itself, lying flatter, losing its internal structure. Every 5 weeks, not 6, not 8, is the trim schedule that keeps fine hair at 70 behaving. A length trim, even just half an inch, resets the weight distribution in the cut, and allows the volume work you're doing at home to actually hold. Women who follow this one scheduling change consistently report that their whole styling routine becomes easier. Because they're working with a cut that still has its shape rather than fighting a cut that's grown past it. The snapback with volume is one of the most immediate visual shifts you can make. Because it doesn't change your hair's length, it doesn't change its color. It just changes the direction it travels. And that direction change reframes the entire face. Cheekbones red higher. Eyes red brighter. The whole composition shifts upward by what feels like an inch, but is actually just physics and light working together correctly. There's one more piece of this, though, and it lives right at the front of your face. The framing around your face is its own conversation entirely, and it's one that most women over 70 have never had with their stylist in any real depth. Because here's what I've learned. The space between your hairline and your cheekbones is where a haircut either wins or loses. And I'm going to show you exactly why in the next part. 4. The fringe factor. Why the space around your face is everything. The area of your haircut that lives between your hairline and your cheekbones is the single most powerful real estate in the whole cut. More powerful than length. More powerful than color. More powerful than volume. Because it's the thing that's closest to your eyes, your expression, and the features that communicate who you are before you've said a single word. Most women over 70 have one of two relationships with fringe. Either they've avoided it entirely, because a bad fringe experience somewhere in the past left a mark, or because they've been told their face shape isn't right for it, or they've kept the same fringe they've had for decades, a blunt, straight-across cut that was set in place at some point and never revisited. Both of these are leaving something significant on the table. And I want to explain why, specifically, because the reasoning is rooted in what actually happens to facial structure after 70, not just in general style theory. After 70, the forehead tends to become more prominent as hairlines shift slightly and temples thin. The area around the jaw softens. The distance between the brow line and the cheekbone becomes more visually open, more exposed. When nothing lives in that space, the eye has no anchor point between the hairline and the lower face. It reads as a long, uninterrupted expanse. and an uninterrupted expanse, in visual terms, reads as more rather than less, more forehead, more length, more distance from top to bottom. What soft fringe does, specifically what stylists call curtain fringe, is interrupt that expanse deliberately. It creates a visual anchor point right at the brow, which divides the face into upper and lower sections. The upper section, forehead, becomes shorter to the eye. The lower section, eyes, cheekbones, jaw, becomes the star. Here's the specific difference between curtain fringe and blunt fringe, because this is where most women get lost. Blunt fringe, a straight, even cut across the forehead, creates a hard horizontal line. A hard line at the forehead draws the eye to the forehead. It emphasizes width. And on a face where the forehead has become more prominent with age, emphasizing it further is the opposite of what you want. Curtain fringe has no hard line. It's cut longer at the center part and shorter as it moves outward toward the temples, or it can be cut with a soft, graduated edge that creates movement rather than a ledge. The pieces don't sit flat across the forehead. They fall into the face from a center point, softening as they go, sweeping gently past the temples rather than stopping abruptly at them. What that sweep past the temple does is something most women have never had explained to them. It creates a diagonal line. And a diagonal line at the face doesn't draw attention to the forehead. It draws attention inward, toward the eyes. It narrows. It softens. It creates the impression of a more oval proportion, which is universally flattering regardless of actual face shape. Now here is the exact language to take to your stylist. Say, I want soft curtain fringe, parted in the center, starting long enough to sweep past my temples. I want the inner pieces to fall to just above my brow, and I want the outer pieces to blend into my face framing layers rather than ending with a hard edge. That is a specific, technical brief. A stylist who knows what they're doing will not need to guess at what you mean. If you've never worn fringe before and you're nervous, which is completely reasonable, ask for what some stylists call a fringe preview. They'll dry and style a section of your existing hair to approximate where curtain pieces would fall, without cutting anything. You get to see the proportion before you commit. This is a standard service request. You are allowed to ask for it. The snapback with curtain fringe is something women describe in strikingly similar terms. They say they look more like themselves. Not younger in a try-hard way. More like the person they feel on the inside, which is exactly the goal. Because the best version of your hair after 70 isn't the hair you had at 45. It's hair that's current, intentional, and structured around your actual face right now. The face you're living in today. One small anecdote that I think about often. A woman I was speaking with had worn her hair pulled straight back from her face for 11 years. She'd decided at some point that fringe wasn't for her, and that was that. A stylist finally convinced her to try the curtain fringe preview. No commitment, just look. She said the moment she saw those two soft pieces frame her temples, she felt something shift. Not dramatically. Not magically. Just there. Like the cut had finally stopped ignoring the most important part of her face. She booked the appointment before she left the salon. That's what the right framing does. It doesn't create a new face. It makes the face you already have readable in the way it deserves to be. You just walked through 4 of the most specific, most actionable hair shifts available to you after 70. Length that lifts instead of pulls. Color that works with your silver instead of fighting it, volume built from direction rather than product alone, and framing that finally puts your eyes where they belong, at the center of the whole picture. That's not a list of vague suggestions. That's a blueprint. And you can take any one of those things to your next salon appointment and walk out with something genuinely different. Tell me in the comments. Which of these 4 did you recognize yourself in most? I read every single one. Next week I'm covering the 5 styling tools most women over 70 should stop using, because some of them are quietly damaging the hair you're working so hard to protect. Like this video, subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path, and I'll see you in the next one.